I know a lot of people want to talk about what exactly Kentucky's ceiling is this season, but what's the Cats' floor?
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to be asking and answering the question, what exactly is Kentucky's floor this season? We'll also be discussing what is Kentucky's ceiling. I think it's pretty obvious. You and I have talked about it quite a bit. And then to wrap up the show, my official, real, actual predictions for the season, considering it starts on Tuesday. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. If you are watching on YouTube here on Halloween night, obviously you see I've got the Ricky Bobby costume on. Have I seen Talladega Nights? No, I have not. My friends and I actually bought each other Halloween costumes this year, and I was the proud recipient of this Ricky Bobby costume, which is actually insanely comfortable. And although you might not see it, there is more than a non-zero chance that I will be wearing the pants to this outfit on a multiple Locked On Kentucky recordings in the future. Anyway, you came here to listen to me talk about what exactly Kentucky's floor might be this season. I want to go ahead and ask you guys, what do you think the worst case scenario is for Mark Pope in Kentucky this season? I want you to drop it in the YouTube comments below. At Locked On UK is also where you can hit me. If there are some interesting thoughts, we'll see if we can discuss them on Monday. But here, what exactly is Kentucky's floor and what does it take to get there? In my opinion, I think the floor for this Kentucky team is a 9-seed first-round exit in the NCAA tournament. I do not see this squad missing the big dance. They have spent a lot of money to acquire a lot of talent. The talent on this team, I think, is too great, and the coaching staff is too good for this team to end up missing the tournament. That is the realistic floor for Kentucky. I'll give you a record here. I went through win-loss, and I picked 19-11, 11-7 in the SEC. I think that is where Kentucky's floor is. A lot of the damage here happening in the non-con, I think it mostly has to do with the fact that maybe Kentucky's not 100% at the start of the year. Maybe you don't see Jaden Quaintance for non-conference play. We don't know yet. We're not for certain. But as of right now, I think that the floor, with the pieces that Kentucky has, with the guys being banged up / out, if they went through this non-conference slate right now, I think they'd take some lumps. I think they would lose to teams like Louisville, Michigan State, Gonzaga, St. John's. I think that they would struggle at home against Indiana, North Carolina, what have you. They would be 19-12 after losing their first game in the SEC tournament, and then the first round exit would put them at 19-13 for the year. What does it take to get there? What does it take for this team to not win 20 games? First and foremost, I think it takes injury misfortune. I think Jalen Lowe has to be gone for a significant portion of this season. Kentucky just simply does not have the ball handling to run offense cleanly without him. And obviously, it was better with Denzel Aberdeen against Purdue, but we saw against Georgetown without either of those guys, Kentucky really struggled offensively. The clean looks that they got, they didn't hit. With the opportunities that they had in transition, they didn't capitalize. They really struggled overall. Losing Jalen Lowe, the offensive engine for this squad, would cause a lot of struggles. Again, I think especially early in the year. I think Jaden Quaintance will also have to miss a significant portion of the season. And when he's on the floor, he's not impactful enough. I think that not impactful enough will come down to two things: how he's utilized offensively, shot selection, whether or not he can actually pass the ball as a big, whether or not he's willing to get closer to the rim to take some shots, or if you're going to see him try and experiment with his game, floaters, mid-range jumpers, maybe the occasional outside shot that just proves to be inefficient like it was last season at Arizona State, and then how Kentucky wants to use him defensively as well. Is he able to make an impact around the rim? Does Kentucky bring him away from that man-to-man? Do other teams try to exploit that? That would be how Jaden Quaintance is not an actual factor whenever he is on the floor. But it would take both J-Lo and JQ missing a significant portion of the year for Kentucky to slide to 19 and 13 at the end of the season. Three-point shooting would have to become a legitimate problem. Matt Jones of KSR has pointed this out. A lot of people on Twitter have acknowledged this. You have probably said similar things already as well to you and your friends and discussing Kentucky hoops so far. Kentucky's not really shot the ball well, either in the pro day against Purdue and definitely not against Georgetown. We have seen different players showcase their shooting ability, but we've not seen it consistently. We watched how Kentucky rushed the opportunities that they had against Georgetown, and then how they slowed the game way down and were kind of shot chucking at various points in the second half. That was really not encouraging. So that has to become a full-time reality, alongside J-Lo not being able to space this offense out well, Jaden Quaintance being a non-factor whenever he's available, and then Kentucky continuing to struggle to shoot the ball because they don't have guys who can create the shot for themselves. Cam Williams, Trent Noah, Colin Chandler, Jasper Johnson, those are the culprits that you would be looking at. We already have discussed how poorly Cam has played so far this year. Noah has been good in spurts, inconsistent against Georgetown. Colin Chandler, really bad against Georgetown. Jasper, bad against Georgetown. All of those guys, I think, have to really struggle shooting the ball for this to become a reality. Not enough strength in SEC play is another thing that has to happen here on either end of the floor. So Kentucky doesn't have enough strength to get to the rim consistently on drives. And then also on the defensive end of the floor, Kentucky doesn't have it at the wing to stay in front of some really brutal players that you're going to have to face off against in this league. I don't have names here for opponents. Obviously, we'll just have to get there when we get there. But as far as Kentucky goes, Chandler, Noah, Owe, etc., not being able to step up and meet what Kentucky needs physically in terms of strength in conference play. And then the final thing here, I think Kentucky's got to really struggle on the road. They've got to really struggle on the road losing in the SEC. And then I think they've also got to struggle in non-con play, losing at Louisville, neutral side against Michigan State, neutral against Gonzaga, neutral against St. John's, and then most of, again, the SEC road games. This is very possible. It's very possible with a really good team. Kentucky's going to have a legitimate test basically every other night throughout the course of this year, and it's going to be tough. So if they aren't healthy, if they can't shoot, if they don't have enough strength, this is all going to go downhill pretty quickly. Again, 19 and 13 is where I have this squad. That would be the floor, again, for this team. I don't see this team being worse than that. They are too talented, and they have too good of a coaching staff to not find 19 wins on this schedule. So we've talked about the floor. What exactly is Kentucky's ceiling, and what does it take to get there? This is a little bit more obvious, I think, but we'll dive into the details in just a second. Before we do it, though, I'll tell you guys about our friends over at Mazda. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is honestly that loss to Georgetown, because as bad as it was in the moment, I think this is a really good teaching moment for Kentucky to learn a lot more about themselves. If you listen to our live postcast, you get to hear me discuss quite a bit about how I think there's some things that were confirmed that we were already suspicious of when it came to this Wildcat squad. And now that they have been confirmed, Kentucky can move forward and adjust properly. And I really do trust this coaching staff to do so. So I think there are a lot of positives that can come from that loss to Georgetown, despite maybe some struggles. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, Ricky Bobby hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. Again, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, would love it if you did so. Thank you so much to everybody who has subbed recently, by the way. Incredible numbers here through the month of October as we wrap up and head into November. Really thank you guys for tuning in. This is season 5 for me here at Locked On Kentucky. And I cannot thank you guys enough for sticking with me. This has been a wild ride, and I expect this season to be nothing short of incredible for the Cats, just in terms of just the roller coaster. I think we're going to be on another roller coaster here this year. So what is Kentucky's ceiling, though? Let's talk positives. What is the best case scenario for the Wildcats this year, and what does it take to get there? I think this is pretty obvious. The ceiling's a 1 seed, and the ceiling is a national championship. Apparently, according to people like John Rothstein, the ceiling needs to be raised even further than wherever he had it, I guess. But the ceiling for Kentucky is a national championship. This has not been much of a debate. This has been a pretty obvious take throughout the course of the offseason. Everyone knows this roster can compete for and win a national title. Just go look at what we just did to Purdue. Pretty ugly without 2 of your best players. Still, obviously, losing to Georgetown's bad, but you see the ceiling. Again, we're talking about the ceiling. 28-3, 15-3 in SEC play, I think, is where Kentucky's ceiling is. And then obviously 31-3 SEC tournament champions as well. So 31-3 is where you would be heading into the NCAA tournament. That is where Kentucky can be this season. That is their ceiling. 28 wins regular season, 31 obviously heading into March Madness. What does it take to get there? I can already hear some of you saying it. I might not even have to say it, but I will for the sake of conversation. Everyone stays healthy. Every player on this roster stays healthy for once. For once. For the first time in the history of me doing this show, which is half a decade now at this point, if this team can stay healthy, they will be good. They will be good. What Mark Pope said after the loss to Georgetown was sobering, but it's also true. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to pause for water, just kind of let it soak in. He said, Kentucky is team great. They don't have individuals that are talented enough to carry this team, but as a team, they can be great. That is a sobering comment from your head coach. Obviously very upset after the loss to Georgetown. There's no better way that I can think to put this right now. I think he was kind of in his feels a little bit. Obviously very hoarse after that game. A lot of yelling was Mark Pope. But he's right. This is a great team. They don't have the individual talent that can carry a squad. And frankly, I'm happy that that's where we're at right now, because at least there's a high floor here, I feel like, for this Cat squad. And then I think that you have individual talents that could blossom into players that can take over. I'm specifically looking into the backcourt at Jalen Lowe and Otega Dawe. Speaking of J-Lo, second thing that it's going to take for Kentucky to go 28-3, 31-3, and then go win a national title. Lowe has to be a hyper-efficient, dominant point guard who does enough on defense. He has to be really good on both ends of the floor, but hyper-efficient on offense. I'm talking 39+% from 3. I'm talking more shots at the rim instead of floaters around the mid-range, which will boost his efficiency. I'm talking 6.5 assists a game or more. I'm talking 15+ points. I'm talking true offensive engine playmaker who can create his own shot, who can go get shots for others, who can dominate at the rim, who can excel in pick and roll, who is scoring, who is distributing, who is getting steals. He has to be great for Kentucky to get to that 30+ win mark. Has to be. Another thing here that's going to have to happen. Jaden Quaintance has to be the defensive puzzle piece that Kentucky has been needing. Everything strengthens off of him, and Marino off of him is a phenomenal secondary option. Let's talk JQ first. He has to be what we think he is, which is one of, if not the best defensive players in all of college basketball. He has to play enough to prove that. He has to be healthy, and then everything strengthens off of him. So he also has to be a competent player in offense the way that Pope wants to use him in this system. He has to be able to pass. He has to be able to distribute. He has to be able to do some spot-up stuff because it's something that he's tried to do, and he has to be able to be at least efficient for his position at it. Not insanely efficient, but he has to be decent enough at it for what he is as a 5. He also, again, has to be the puzzle piece Kentucky needs. Everything on defense strengthens because he's on the floor. And then again, Malachi Marino, I think, has to be a good, phenomenal secondary option. it's clear, talking about high floors here, Marino has one. Can he show that consistently this year as a defender, as a rebounder, as a post scorer, as a passer? He has to do that with JQ in order for Kentucky to go 31 plus wins. JQ and JLo are the keys to this team. And then I think it's 1-5, honestly. I don't know how much Brandon Garrison factors into this season, but I think that Marino is probably going to be a more consistent 4 here. Maybe BG has higher highs because he can shoot a little bit. And then Jaden Quaintance, I think, also is going to be big for Kentucky. Sorry, this hat is just really, really itchy. But the 5 as a whole has to be really good. Kentucky has to have enough muscle to sustain themselves in SEC play. So we talked about how if they're going to suck, they're not going to have enough muscle. But if they are really good, they're also going to have the guys on the wing to kind of gut some stuff out in conference play. Chandler, Aberdeen, Mo, Yelovich, Owe, etc. They've all got to step up here. And then the final thing here, we talked about, well, this could be a struggle. Kentucky's got to be an above average shooting team to win 30 games or more. Anything, I mean literally anything over about 34.5% is good. I don't know if it's good enough for where this team's going to be this season just as a whole, but as far as, perfect scenario, 34.5, 35% as a team, that's good. Florida was shooting 35% as a team. They won a title last year. If you're shooting 37.5% like UK was a season ago, this is a dominant squad. They might go undefeated. They might not lose a game. So they have to be an above average shooting team. JQ has to be the puzzle piece Kentucky needs. JLo has to be hyper efficient. Everyone has to stay healthy. So that's the ceiling. National championship. You bludgeon everyone in your path. You are unstoppable. You are like that UConn squad a couple of seasons ago where it is just a complete machine. They cannot be stopped across the board. What are my predictions, though? What do I think is going to happen for this team? I've talked a little bit about it before on the show. I'm going to give my actual final season predictions because the season starts on Tuesday. We are here. It is happening. I will tell you about those in just a moment. Before we do it, though, tell you guys about our friends over at DoorDash. It is almost the weekend. You've got a season starting on Tuesday. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, this player delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Kentucky, I think it's pretty obvious. The only player that I was impressed with was Mohamed Diabate. He had 13 points, grabbed some boards, was the only player that could stand up physically to what Georgetown was doing in that exhibition game. I thought that he was good there, and he is going to be really solid as that junkyard dog for Kentucky this season. If you were watching him at Bama, if you were watching him against Kentucky, if you've been hearing about him in practice, his performance was not a fluke. He's on a streak here, and he's going to be a very valuable asset for this Wildcats team. And just like Diabate delivered for Kentucky, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday you order. You can stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, and fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is here, and FanDuel is the only place you need to go to get in on the action. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every single game more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, the Friday edition of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Season 5 for me is almost upon us. It's here. I am nervous. I'm a little worried after that Georgetown game, but I'm excited. I'm really excited to see where this team goes this year. I have not been more emotionally attached to a squad than I was for last season's team, Mark Pope's first year here. And I'm really excited to see where this team goes because I have very high expectations. What are my final predictions for this Kentucky team? I think Kentucky this year, and you can leave yours in the comments below. Regular season, they will go 25-6 and 14-4 in SEC play. They will lose to Gonzaga and St. John's in the non-conference. I think Mark Pope has consistently struggled against Mark Few. Last season, they were able to find a way to win, to come back, to win that game at the end. But I think that Gonzaga will have Kentucky's number this year in Nashville. St. John's, Kentucky struggled in the CBS Sports Classic. I think they'll do it again here against a very good St. John's team. They will lose in SEC play on the road at Tennessee. They will lose at home to Texas. They will lose on the road to Arkansas. They will lose on the road at Florida. However, that 14-4 mark, they will be 13-4 heading into that final game of the regular season against the Florida Gators in Rupp Arena. They will win that game, and they will be regular season SEC champions. They will then go to Nashville, and they will win the SEC tournament, putting them at 28-6, 14-4, heading into the NCAA tournament. I think that will be good enough for either a 2 or a 1 seed, depending on how the rest of the field shakes out. Kentucky will make the Final Four. That is my prediction. This team will gel. They may have some injury struggles, but they will gel. They will get guards sorted out. Jaden Quaintance will be special for Kentucky defensively, and they will be team great. They will make the Final Four is my prediction. Do they push past that? It will come down to health. It will come down to, which we can't predict, it will come down to who you face off against, but this team is too good to not go through their region and to represent their region in the Final Four. I think that this Cat squad will do it. That is my prediction. 28-6, 14-4 in SEC play. Again, you might notice that 14-4 mark is just one win off from their ceiling in conference play, at least in my opinion. But again, I think a lot of the damage for Kentucky, if they don't hit their ceiling, if they do crash and burn and they hit their floor, a lot of the damage will be done in the non-con. I don't think it'll be done in SEC play because at that point, I do think that they will have some sort of chemistry to build off of. And they got a lot of games at home that I think are very winnable, and they got some games on the road that I'm not necessarily believers in some of the teams in this conference that were good last year. Most notably, Auburn, Texas A&M, and Tennessee. So that is my prediction. I want you guys to drop yours in the comments below. We're going to have a preview of Kentucky's season opening game against Nicholls on Monday. That will be a very fun preview. This is a good team, I believe, with a good coach who has had back-to-back 20-plus win seasons for the first time in program history. I think that this is a decent squad that they have put together that's going to face off against Kentucky in Rupp Arena. So we will preview that game, and we will tip off, I should say, the 2025-26 season for Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats. I am very excited to get this started with you. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed yet, I would love it if you did so. It's time. Let's see if Kentucky can go win number 9. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. I will see you all on Monday for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and God bless.